So in this video, I want to highlight this really unique sculptural piece that we created recently. It's really out of the box compared to most of the things that we've created in the past. To help do that, I kind of want to tell the origin story, what the inspiration was, and how this piece came about. So first, let's dive into what this piece is. So this piece is sort of a natural and turned sculptural piece. It's all out of cedar. The majority of this cedar all came out of the same log, the same tree. Some of the spheres may not have come exactly from this tree. However, what we really have here is sort of a one unit. It's really 7 different pieces. So we've got 5 spheres. So all of these spheres came from cedar. These were hand turned. They're not perfectly round, but hopefully you can see they're pretty round. If you were rolling these on a pool table or something like that, they would skip and bounce a little bit. But for this purpose, they are pretty really round. Everything has a natural finish. There's no stains, no colors, nothing else like that added to it. The spheres are all pretty glossy. They've got a pretty glossy finish. That was done intentionally just to kind of give you sort of that contrast between just the natural lines of sort of I would call it the bowl or the vessel, compared to, machining something round, polishing it, to a gloss, right? That creating that contrast between the natural textures and sort of these created textures. So the story really starts with the vessel itself and how it came about. So this piece was really several years in the making. Many years ago, I was experimenting. I was at a local salvage lumber yard where they sell and mill trees. I had never worked all the way from logs to anything, whether it was turning or anything else, and I thought it'd be kind of an interesting experiment to try. So I stopped the Jeep, walked back into the shed, and lo and behold, yeah, they were more than willing to sell logs kind of out of the scrap pile. I paid the gentleman for the log, loaded it into the Jeep, and off we went with the other lumber we'd purchased that morning. So later that day, as I was experimenting with using the chainsaw to cut bowl blanks and things like that from a log, I had this piece right here that became the vessel. And I really wasn't sure what to do with this. So this is where there was sort of a crotch section of a tree, and in nature, there was another branch of the cedar tree that came, that was right up against this piece. So I took the chainsaw and I sawed off this part, because the other part of the blank, I looked at that and I thought, well, I can get a good bowl out of it. I can get a good sized bowl out of it. So I just set this piece aside flat on the ground. And I kept working that day. As I was working and coming through and looking and coming through, I just happened to notice this piece. And really what caught me was, well, nature or God actually just created this vessel. So the vessel was already there. And I found that kind of interesting. As I was doing that, I just kind of set it aside and I thought, well, I'll do something with just this piece and this will be the vessel. As I was working through that stuff that day, my son Peyton, who's an artist, he was still in college at that time studying art, he saw this piece laying over off to the side. He could tell I had set it aside for something. He was like, what are you doing with that? So I kind of told him my idea. Hey, I'm going to do something. I'm going to kind of plane off the bottom and make a vessel. And that'll just be the bowl. And he was like, oh, that's a really good idea. He goes, but you really need a base. You need a base. That'll really elevate the piece. I got to thinking about that, and I was like, well, how am I going to do that? What is that going to be like? And then there was another log section there that I hadn't cut yet, which happened to be the other piece of the log, which is actually this piece over here. So this piece in nature would have gone something like this. So I was going to make a bowl out of this section over here, and so then I decided, well, I'll just keep both of these pieces and we'll let it dry out and then we'll work it. A long time was really just letting these pieces dry. So it took a couple years. The pieces dried in the shop, and then from there we just started working, and it was really a collaborative effort on the design. I kind of had that original idea with this, really, just this vessel. This was the part I really wanted to show off. And I think he was exactly right in that adding a pedestal. So I've kind of flip-flopped the log. These two surfaces in nature did not meet, but all we really did was kind of plane this surface. You can actually see on the bottom side, you can actually still see some of those chainsaw marks. But we got it really flat so that we've got a nice flat surface, smooth, where these two pieces meet. And then what you'll notice also is we've just got a couple dowels. And these fit loosely, they're not glued together. The reason we did this was to make it easy so these pieces would come apart. But they would go back together, and they're not going to slide around on you when you put them together. So the pieces just go together, they just kind of slide together, but having those little dowels in there just keep these pieces from wanting to slide apart. So once we started shaping and flattening the pieces, then we started looking at the overall shape of the composition itself. And Peyton helped a lot with a couple of ideas. So that's where we started coming up with the ideas. Sherry helped as well. So it was sort of a joint design effort, really, from all three of us. And the idea was this vessel itself, as it sat originally, before we'd really started trimming and reshaping anything, was pretty blocky and pretty heavy visually. And so in order to lighten up some of the visuals, we added this very gradual angle to both the front and the back. They're both the same angle, and they line up pretty well. They're really nice and smooth. This angle kind of continues through both pieces. Then the other thing that Peyton suggested was he felt like the base was still too heavy, mainly visually. So we also kind of hollowed it out. So we pop that up here. You'll notice that this, so we also kind of created this almost like a tunnel effect on the base. So the base and the vessel, they fit nice and tight together. They're nice and solid on the table. And we actually used one of the waste piece from the base was actually put back together and actually makes up this sphere. So part of the sphere, one of the spheres, definitely comes directly out of this whole unit. So this tree, in its original form, all of these pieces were together. And now we've basically taken and just sort of rearranged them into this sculptural piece, including the vessel, the base, and the spheres. So that's the story behind how this piece came about, how it was created, why it was created, and the inspiration. If you'd like to add this sculpture to your collection, there's a link in the description below. That'll take you to the product page in our online store. From there, you'll be able to purchase the sculpture, and we'd love to ship it to you.